Hello everybody, welcome back to my second channel, The Soar Mommy. Please subscribe if you are new here. This is a place where I talk all things pregnancy, mom related, and today we are going there. Toddler discipline. You guys can call me Gandalf right now because I'm pretty much a wizard. This method I'm about to share with you, I actually feel like I'm a wizard, and the dramatic difference this has had on my life, on Carter's life. Like, I feel like I have a new child. So I wanted to make an entire dedicated video talking about this, sharing it with the world. Although I do need to start with a disclaimer. Obviously, this is what has worked for me and my 3-year-old, and I can't say it will work for everybody. I just know how insanely well this has worked for me. Now, I will be real with you. I'm a little nervous to do this video because discipline techniques, anything in this arena, is a little bit of a sensitive topic. I know people have very strong opinions. You might not like this method. You may not agree with it. So I just hope that you can listen and understand that this is my method. You don't have to follow it. This is just me sharing what's worked for me. Carter turned 3 back in January of 2020, so he's a little bit over 3, and he's always been, a good kid for the most part, but he's a toddler. Like, toddlers, they want to test their limits. They don't always want to listen. They want to do things themselves. And frankly, they just want to do what they want to do. So the closer he was getting to 3, the more tough the battles were getting. And I just felt like I was losing him. Like, he just was not listening. But I would say, if I had to put a number on it, he listened to me maybe 40% of the times. Like, sometimes he would, but the majority of the time he just would not listen. And my first thing that I did is I read a book called How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen. I got the audiobook, I got a paper copy of the book, I took notes as I was reading the book because I loved it. I loved the approach. I loved every single thing in this book, and I desperately wanted it to work. What I love about that approach most is it's very, very positive reinforcement. There's no punishments at all. It's all positive. And if you know me as a person, as a mom, I'm very soft. I didn't want to have to do anything at all that involved something negative or punishments. So I was like, cool, this is great. This is going to work. I dedicated myself to the methods in this book. And unfortunately, the strategies just did not work at all. Like, nope, didn't work. I will still say this, and this might sound crazy, but I do still recommend that book to every single mom because there's so many things in there about like child psychology and how their brain works. And it talks a lot about the importance of empathy with your child, understanding their emotions, empathizing with their emotions. And I still do follow those parts of the book. So then what happened was I got pregnant. And I was feeling terrible and I had no energy. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to survive this pregnancy, having a baby with this toddler who just will not listen to me. Like, it's just not going to work. I have to figure something out. But I just went on the internet, started doing research. And when I do research, you guys, I'm down that rabbit hole. I'm far. I'm like on page 26 of Google. And I came across randomly this blog, and this woman had 3 sons and told her story about how things were just out of control. She was losing it, and she found this book randomly, and it changed her life. And just reading her testimonial, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna at least look into it. And when I went to the book page on Amazon, it had amazing reviews. You can read them for yourself, including my review. And the book is called Beyond Timeout: From Chaos to Calm. And I didn't even like the title of that book because I wasn't into the idea of timeout. I had never done timeout. Even that was like too much for me. I was like, that sounds a little aggressive, but I'll read it. I'll try it out. So if you go on the Amazon page, you can just download it to your phone, like the Kindle app on your phone, for I think $8. So I'm like, okay, I'll just download it. I read the entire book in one afternoon. And see here, I took notes as I was reading because I wanted to be able to review everything with Ryan, because it's really important that you and your partner are on the same page when it comes to discipline. Now, the whole first part of the book, it might just seem like fluff and something you can skip over, but I think it's really important because it talks about the main parenting styles and how each one of those parenting styles is going to affect your kid in the short term and long term, and how your kid is probably acting right now with each of the parenting styles. So I am what is called the pleaser parent, who just kind of gives your kid whatever they want just so they're happy and they're not crying. Like, that is me. I thought, that's great. What's the problem here? Well, she kind of explains the long-term ramifications of that, and it kind of got me thinking and realizing that your kids actually want and need and crave boundaries. It's going to make them feel more secure. It's going to define your roles. Not only will they be behaving better, but you'll be happier. You will have more sanity. You'll have control of your life again. And so everyone in the household is going to be better off. I also do just want to quickly say here, even though I'm going to be describing this method, it is imperative that you also read the book if you actually want to do it, because there's a lot more detail than I can share here. I'm just going to be going over the basics and how I apply it, but this is not a substitute for reading the book. Really, there's a lot of detail, and this is something that I think is important, that you fully understand exactly how to do it and the psychology behind it. The method is actually called the Ladder Method, and I wish the book was called the Ladder Method. That would have been a better title. And basically, there are stages of actions that you take when your child is not cooperating in order to get their cooperation. Biggest thing that I have to emphasize here, if you get nothing else from this video, is in order for this to work in any capacity, you have to be fully committed and you have to follow through every single time. Even if there's one time where you don't follow through and you don't do it, the whole system falls apart, because the whole crux of this is that your child starts to realize that you actually mean what you say, and that if they don't listen, there will be consequences. Not sometimes, not 1 out of 5 times, every single time. And once they start to learn that, they actually will listen. I'm really sorry about the changing lighting. I'm just as annoyed as you are. So step 1 on the ladder is friendly cooperation. In the first phase, you have a nice, confident tone, and you address your child in an informal way. So whatever little nickname you use for them. So you would say something like, "Hey buddy, it's time to come inside." So we're just asking nicely in a happy, positive tone. Very simple, straightforward. So that is step 1 on the ladder. Now, if you have an angel child, they'll just listen to you the first time. They'll just come right in and you're done. But if you're reading this book, you probably need to go on. Step 2 is the I mean business reminder. What you're doing here is you're changing your tone to a firm tone. You are lowering yourself to their level. You're looking at them directly in the eye. You want to use their full name, or at least, their full name, middle name. And you say as follows: Carter Gray, I said it's time to come inside. This is the second time I'm saying it, and I only asked twice. If I have to say it again, you're going to time out. We went there. We just escalated the situation. And it is very important that you say it exactly like that. I will put it down below. So you're repeating the command in a firm tone. You are acknowledging it's the second time you've asked. And if you have to ask again, they are going into timeout. You only say this one time. You don't have to wait for them to acknowledge you. They can hear you even if they're pretending to ignore you. Now, if they still have not done it, you're moving to level 3, and that is action. This is the most critical step of this entire method. They need to know that if they don't listen the first or second time, the third time is action. It is timeout. So there is no more chances. There is no more, oh, no, I'll do it now. It is time to act. So then all you say at this point, and your tone is still neutral to positive, and you say, okay, so be it. We're going to your room for timeout. Period. There is no more begging or them trying to get out of it or anything. You gave them 2 chances and they didn't do it. So now it's time for action. There's no more chances. And by doing this, they learn that they have to do it the first or second time you ask. Otherwise, there is a consequence. So again, you say, all right, so be it. We're going into your room for timeout, and you go to them and you guide them into the room for timeout. You do not repeat yourself. You do not explain why. You are really conveying your authority. And yes, if any of this sounds weird, trust me, it was weird for me. I had never even done timeout with Carter once in his entire life before doing this, and I felt like such a fraud, but I'm like, you know what? We're just gonna follow it and see. Really important thing here, because your child will probably try to just give me one more chance, or oh no, I'll do it now, once they realize that you're serious. But at that point, it's too late, and the next time they can do it, and the first or second time you ask. So what you would say to them is, I asked twice, I gave you a warning, you still didn't do it, so now we have to do timeout. You don't have to keep explaining yourself, you have to hold firm, and remember, you are the authority figure. If they won't cooperatively go to their room and walk in, you can carry them there. And I will just give you guys a spoiler alert and let you know that I only ever had to get to level 3 2 times. By the second time, he got the picture that mom means business, and so now things are pretty straightforward. I'll ask once nicely, he still will almost never do it the first time, but by the second time, he'll do it. Phase 3, part 2. What do you do now? You bring them into their room or whatever space you want to designate for timeout. Okay, well now you need to stay in your room until I tell you it's time to come out. You leave the door open so you can still supervise them. You ignore any protests, and don't go too far because you kind of have to keep an eye on the situation. What she recommends is 1 minute in the room for every year old they are. So Carter would be 3 minutes. Now in scenario 1, where they're just in the room and they cooperate with the timeout without crying or kicking and screaming and trying to leave the room, then they get their 3 minutes. So at the end of the 3 minutes, you say, okay, honey, the time in the room is over. You can come out now. You don't need to review the situation. You don't need to talk about it. She specifically says after this timeout to not discuss or ask questions or give them reassurance like, you did such a good job. Like, this is just the way things are. You are an authority figure. Just remember that. Now, in scenario 2, if they go in the room kicking and screaming, if they're crying in there, if they're trying to escape, but basically what you do is you actually talk in a lower whispering type tone and you say, shh, we have to be quiet and be calm. Otherwise, the time doesn't start until you're calm. So the first time I took him to timeout, it was a scenario 2 where he was kicking and screaming, and I had to explain to him that the time didn't start until he was quiet. And so eventually he quieted down, he did his 3 minutes, he came out. The second time we got to level 3, it was a scenario 1. He kind of knew what he was doing. He wasn't happy, but he was quiet in there, and we got out after 3 minutes, and that was it. Now that is where I stopped taking notes. But she goes on to say, what if they are just in hysterics? They will not calm down. They're having a full meltdown in the room. And that is where you get into this thing she calls the parent-child hold, where essentially you go in the room and you embrace them, like you give them a pretty tight hug. I don't think you even say anything. You're just kind of holding them until they calm down. And it might take, 5 to 10 minutes. And again, I never got to that point with Carter, so I can't fully speak to it. And that's why you need to read the book yourself. But there is a whole technique there if your child will not cooperate with the timeouts at all. So that's it. That's the crux of the system. And it might sound so simple because it really is in theory. I mean, it's just you get 2 warnings. The third time, you're out. But what most parents do, and I had been doing up until this point, is they give empty threats. They say 1, 2, 3, and then nothing happens. So your kid learns that there's not really a consequence, so they just kind of see what they can get away with. With this system, they learn that you mean business. You will take action, and it really changes their psychology and the way they view you. It was so unbelievable, you guys. Like, I didn't expect it to work. I was kind of just doing it for fun, but I didn't expect it to work as well as it did. It's still a little bit shocking to me when he listens. I'm like, whoa. But there's a couple of little caveats here. One is I find you have to be careful with this new power that you have because you can overuse it and abuse it. Like, I still want Carter to be a kid. I don't want to be a dictator where he is falling in line and he's like a robot child, okay? So I really reserve this for important things and really let that sink in, okay? I'm not doing this 10 times a day. I'm doing it for things that are important. If his safety is in jeopardy, if it's a very important lesson, like it's important to me that he picks up after himself. So for me, I just have to evaluate, is this really worth it? I don't want to abuse my power that I have. I still want him to be a kid and have fun. So a huge caveat, okay? She says in the book, she explains it in detail. This system is not allowed to be used for getting your child to use the potty, getting your child to eat, or getting your child to sleep. You cannot force them to do those things or punish them for not doing those things. And she talks about why it can be very damaging for them. And it might seem unfortunate because a lot of times those are the main things we want them to do or we struggle with them doing. But she does have whole chapters on those topics. So how you can get them to sleep eat their food and use the potty without using this method. I mean, think about it. How awful would it be? Like, if you don't eat your food, you're in timeout. Like, that's not fair, and it makes sense, and I totally understand. So that is it. Again, remember, consistency is everything. There was like one day when I was pregnant and I was too tired to follow through, and he just within like one afternoon started completely regressing. So I had to get back on it the next day. A couple other little discipline things that I do with Carter is very important to me that he is polite, because he is pretty bossy like his mom. So whenever he's demanding things, I always make him say, okay, how do we ask nicely? And he'll say, please. And I say, nope, say the whole sentence. So I make him say, can I please have a snack? Or can I please go here? Whatever it is. Because I'm not gonna have a little tyrant running around. At least he could be a polite tyrant. So yeah, I'm big on please and thank you and just being polite. Oh, she talks about what you would do if something happened and you're out in public. It's pretty much the same, but they would do their timeout in the car or somewhere else that's isolated. But yes, if you are out at a restaurant and they're acting up, you follow the same method, and then you would bring them out outside of the restaurant or in the car, obviously supervised, for their timeout if it got to that point. So yeah, that's it. The best things in life are simple, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I didn't think this was gonna work. I kind of just did it as an experiment, and I was just flabbergasted by how well it worked. I cannot guarantee it's going to work for every child. Every child is so different. But if you go on the Amazon page and you look at the reviews, there's quite a lot of situations and types of kids and moms giving testimonials that it has worked for them. So yeah, if you guys did enjoy this, please subscribe. Give this a thumbs up. Share this video with your other mom friends, especially if they are struggling, if they're dealing with a toddler. Better believe with baby girl here, we will be following this method. I would say this is one of the best things I've ever found and implemented as a mom. Sleep training was a big one. This is a big one, just in terms of how much they've affected my day-to-day life and making my life easier. He's happier, mom's happier, everyone's happier. And I did mention this earlier, but it is critical that your partner is also on board with this system and they are following it as well. So anyway, with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye.